Good evening. My name is Edwin, and welcome to this last session of our Career Aspiration series in this 2 week. And I will be your host today. And we have a few speakers here today. So later I'll introduce them to you one by one. So for today's session, we will be mainly introduce our new Hong Kong program, which will be launched the coming academic year, which is called the Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Laws, which is a double degree. And so in view of the rapid development of technological innovations in worldwide, especially maybe near us in Greater Bay Area, there's been a growing demand of talents equipped with cross-disciplinary knowledge that can tackle challenges in STEM-driven regulatory affairs and some intellectual properties protection. So this brand new Hong Kong double degree Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Laws, we aim to nurture some legal professionals with expertise in science in this STEM-driven society, and also tackle some IP issues. So allow me to after this introduction, allow me to introduce the speakers today. So today we have Dr. Timothy Bonebreak, so the Associate Dean, Teaching and Learning from Hong Kong Faculty of Science. And after Dr. Bonebreak, we have Ms. Jennifer Che, Vice President and Principal at Eco IP Limited, a global patent firm. And third, we have Mr. Nigel Lee. So if possible, Mr. Nigel, you can also switch off your cam when possible. So Mr. Nigel Lee is a patent attorney at a UK law firm called D. Young & Co. LLP, which is also, Nigel is also a Hong Kong alumnus, okay? So after our speaker sharing, we will also invite my colleague in Hong Kong Admissions Office, Mr. Ying Choi, to talk about the program admissions requirement of this new program, BSc and LLB. And after that, we'll have a Q&A session that we have also Dr. Ryan Whalen, Associate Professor from Hong Kong Department of Law. And also we have Mr. Michael Jackson, and also faculty's colleagues in Faculty of Law and Faculty of Science to answer your audience the Q&A. So meanwhile, during the talk, you can also make good use of the Q&A function of this Zoom webinar to ask anything you are interested or you want to know about this new program or this industry, so that we can address you to your question at the end in the Q&A session. So with no further ado, let me pass the time to Dr. Bonebreak to share about some program information about this BSc and LLB program. So Dr. Bonebreak, please, thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you virtually and to introduce to you the program of the Bachelor of Laws and Bachelor of Science. So recently, the Hong Kong government has actively promoted innovation and technology, technological transfer, entrepreneurship. These are really important goals in the Hong Kong government, but also in the wider Greater Bay Area. But to do that, we need to groom a new generation of students with both scientific and legal knowledge to equip our students to assume important positions relating to innovation and policymaking. You can see the graphs below, just the increase in the number of patents globally. And of course, China, US, Japan, these are all really important areas where this is a growing field. So what is the program? It's a double degree program, which includes the Bachelor of Science and also the Bachelor of Laws. And the idea is training in terms of scientists and legal professionals to combine those skills and talents with interdisciplinary knowledge and skills in both science and law. This is a first of its kind program in Hong Kong for students who want that expertise in both science and law, and to cultivate legal and scientific mindsets, and feed into the development of STEM talents who are capable of handling a wide variety of innovation-related matters. And this, again, is designed to cope with the soaring demand of patent practitioners and legal professionals, particularly in the technology industry. So where could this program lead? So graduates with a double degree, we're envisioning that they could enter commerce and industry, business compliance, community, social, and personal services, environmental law, entrepreneurship and biotechnology, academic research in both science and law. There's some exciting areas there. Government and regulatory officials, educational institutions, and further studies in science, professional qualifications in business management, et cetera. There's a really diverse set of areas that this degree can lead. Really importantly, the degree also leads the possibility to continue to pursue postgraduate certificate in laws, the PCLL, and that would allow for legal certification. So how does this program equip you for your future career? Well, there's obviously this important legal foundation, so foundational legal concepts and systematic honing of professional skills such as critical thinking, analytical and problem-solving skills. So there are courses on case reading, legal research, writing, statutory interpretation, and also, importantly, experiential learning opportunities such as moot competitions and clinical legal education. And then within science, there's obviously an important scientific knowledge and research skills. And that includes lectures, laboratory, workshop courses. And then where it really gets interesting is when those things combine, and we are combining those in an interdisciplinary way for cross-disciplinary knowledge, analytical and evaluation skills, independent research experience, which could involve research courses, field camps, project-based courses, and also work experience, internships, and placements. So this is kind of the breakdown of the program. So in science, there are 96 credits, which include disciplinary and capstone courses. Law, there are 156 credits, so it's more than science because there is more of a technical aspect to the legal education, which is really key. And that's one of the reasons why this is a 5-year double degree program. And then the university education, which is 36 credits. And then I mentioned that interdisciplinary aspect, and that's 12 credits. So that's the breakdown of the 300 credits in 5 years for the double degree. So the program can bring you extensive subject knowledge, training in law, scientific literacy coupled with the legal knowledge, and this will allow graduates to formulate solutions to really key challenges in innovation, technology, and law. I mentioned the eligibility to apply for the PCLL after completing the double degree program, and being in a position also to apply for other postgraduate programs, either in law or in science. So these are really key transferable skills across the program. So that's just a brief overview of what the program is, and I'm excited to be here and discuss some of the other elements and particularly focusing on the career aspirations. So thanks.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Brombrick. So allow me to introduce one more guest. Is Professor W.S. Zhang, the admissions director from Faculty of Science. So sorry for missing you, Professor Zhang. So he will be, Professor Zhang will also be one of the key person to answer your Q&A. And so meanwhile, again, allow me to mention again, if you have any questions, so please feel free to raise out in the Q&A function. Okay, so moving on to our next part. So thank you, Brombrick, for your sharing about the program information. So as our speakers are some experts in the field, especially in law and also in science fields. So I guess some audience would like to hear more from your from your perspective about this program and about the industry in general. So maybe I would have a few questions to ask. Maybe I invite you to share about your views. So first, so this is a new program, and maybe some parents and students might find the combination of science and law quite special or quite unique. So maybe can our speakers, maybe Dr. Brombrick, Jennifer, and Nigel, can you share a bit more why this is helpful to gain expertise in both fields, and why is it more beneficial for students or prospective to get a double degree instead of maybe a normal single degree? Can you also share a bit your views? Yeah, anyone can start. Maybe if you have some opinions. Perhaps Nigel, you can share with us.
Okay, yes. It's my pleasure and my honor to share my experience here today. So, frankly speaking, from the time I started my first degree in electronics engineering at Hong Kong U, until I completed my LLM program, which has also happened in Hong Kong U, it took me almost 18 years. So not because I was a bad student, but because I didn't have the chance to decide to enter the patent profession at the beginning of my career. So as a matter of fact, Hong Kong did not have a true patent system before 1997, and all patent rights were based on re-registration from United Kingdom or EP patents, European patents. So there were just only a handful of patent attorneys in the industry at that time. And then the legal and economic environment is, of course, very different nowadays. And I reckon that a double degree program is very beneficial by giving the graduates a unique position in the market. And certainly it is the most efficient way to acquire the qualifications once you have a clear ideas about your future planning. And acquiring that double degree in two very different disciplines in 5 years will not just save you the time, and I believe in the process, you have the opportunity to choose the proper and focus, the proper subjects and focus on the studying of science and legal subjects that have stronger interactions with each other.
Okay, thank you, Nigel. So Jennifer or Dr. Brombrick, do you have anything to add on?
Sure, I can add on a bit. Thank you, Nigel, for your sharing. Yes, similarly, I have a similar background as Nigel in that I actually studied science first. I studied chemistry at MIT in the United States. And then similarly, I worked for a while, and it wasn't until 6 years later that I pursued a legal career. So it would have been really unusual to be able to study both of those together, actually. I will say that when I was studying chemistry, I actually didn't really like language and English and humanities. I was very much into science. So my skills actually in terms of legal reasoning and writing were actually quite weak when I was studying my scientific degree. And it wasn't until I went to law school and then really had to write all those briefs and do a lot of case analyses that my skills in that area developed a lot more. So it would have been really, really helpful actually to be able to study them both at the same time. And honestly, there are so many careers where you need both. And every company needs a lawyer, actually. And many companies work in the areas of technology. So I worked in-house at pharmaceutical companies. Even as a person who was a chemistry researcher, I really knew drug discovery and drug development really well. And then when I switched into patent law, I knew also how the company worked. And then from a legal perspective and the scientific knowledge, you're able to advise so much more closely because you understand the scientists, because maybe you are one of them. You've done those experiments. You actually know what it is like to pipette something or to run a column or something like that. So I really think that having that tangible knowledge of both sides is really, really valuable. And having a degree that allows you to kind of do actual real work, real research, maybe some legal briefs, do a moot court competition. Those are really, really unusual to get at the undergraduate level. Really, really unusual.
Yeah, I can just add in terms of the scientific perspective, there's a lot of interest within science and within our faculty, but other science faculties, to do applied research and apply something from our findings into production or into to make it actually work. And often there's a real bottleneck where it can't happen because there isn't that expertise, that legal expertise. And this is a program where I think we can really make a difference.
Dr. Brombrick, I love what you said about that, because exactly, I think Hong Kong has a lot of good basic R&D that's happening at the universities, and then the startups that are translating that, there's still a disconnect right now. There's a need for that. All those people that know how to help us draft contracts to protect ourselves. How do you get the IP? How do you transfer the IP, right? Totally.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing. So I know like Jennifer and Nigel, you are currently working in the industry. And for your information, I'm also a science graduate, so I'm also interested in knowing some more information about this in the industry. So are there any more real life example or maybe some concrete example that you can tell our audience, because some of them are really parents and students that don't have much information or background about this industry. So any real life example you can share with us as well about this dual expertise in science and law? Perhaps Nigel, Jennifer, anyone can share with us. Yeah.
So maybe Jennifer first.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I mean, there's a billion examples. I feel like Nigel probably has some himself. Both of us are patent attorneys, right? We've had that experience. And that one is front and center, an obvious example, because so I worked in-house. So I worked in a pharmaceutical company. I had to talk to the inventors and they had to explain to me the cutting edge research that they were doing. So as a chemist, they might be running certain experiments and then they tell me, oh, the conditions for this, including atom, sodium phosphate, or now I had to tweak the conditions and add a bit more salt or base, and they're drawing molecules and they're explaining the mechanism by how the molecule works. I need to understand all of that. And then I have to translate it and write it into a patent application. And I have to think legally about how do I protect the invention? How do I draft claims? How do I think about infringement? If someone's going to sue, how do I protect the product? So I have to think about business. I have to think about legal issues, about patent claims. I have to understand the science. I have to think about what other scientists would understand so I know how much to write in the patent application, because if every scientist understands it, there's no need to write it. There's standards like that. So all of these come together in one brain. When you're drafting a patent application, you have to talk to the inventors and then you translate it and then you talk to the examiners. You might talk to a judge during a court case, even if there's a litigation. Now you have to talk really legal. So the same person has to understand science, explain perhaps from a scientific perspective why this patent claim covers or does not cover an invention, for example. And it might really come down to the conditions. What does it mean to be an acidic molecule? What does it mean to be a polypeptide? What does it mean to be a protein or DNA? You can't just be a person with no scientific explanation to explain legally why under the patent law, DNA is not or isn't covered by this claim. So that's just one basic example.
Technology, very complex forensic issues to do with chemical matters, chemistry matters, or physics, the study of the failure of materials and so on, and some sort of claim. And obviously they have to learn that. And if that's something that you are perhaps thinking as your future may be in a traditional barrister, again, this provides you with an edge, because I little doubt that in the future, technology, science-related issues will be a big part of life in the law courts. And having an understanding of those subjects in one or more areas will provide you with an obvious foot up in your career as a barrister. So you don't have to see yourself going into the clear cutting edge law and technology, law and science, as Nigel and Jennifer have spoken of, or Ryan has spoken of. Just even a more traditional, having this understanding of science, provide you with that ability, perhaps engage in your legal career in a more focused way. Beyond that, no, there's nothing. I don't have a science background, so I don't have much to add to that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jackson. So I see some students or parents has already asking about exciting about this program, and of course they have the interest, but they also want to know about the admissions requirements. So for this part, maybe I pass the time to my colleague Ying to talk about a little bit more about the requirement in JUPAS and non-JUPAS. So Ying, I'll pass the time to you.
All right, thank you very much, Wen. Thank you for everyone for your insightful sharing. And just now I'm just going to take the next 5 to 10 minutes or so to just talk about how you can be a part of this program, how you can apply to HKU, and how you can apply to this particular program. So now, for those of you parents, students, you may already know that at HKU, we accept students applying either through the HKDSD, the local examination, or international exams such as the IB, GCE, A-levels, or say the American qualifications. Now, depending on which exams you will take, you will be applying to different pathway. So I will go over each of the pathway in just a couple of slides, in the next couple of slides. So just a quick update that M1, M2 is officially recognized at HKU as something that can be used to fulfill the entry requirements. So now you can use it to meet the elective, the requirements of our electives using either M1 or M2 if you're a student study completing the HKDSE. Now, there is a overall university level requirements for students who would like to join us, regardless of which program you're applying to. So now for those who are entering university before 2024, this is the minimum entry requirements for students who would like to join HKU, regardless of the programs. So as you can see, liberal studies is there, but since there is a reform in the curriculum, so now for students who are entering after 2024, the citizenship and social development subject will replace the previous liberal studies, and the students will be expected to get the level attained in order to be considered for HKU. Now, for this particular program, the Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Laws double degree, students, as many of you are aware, it is a law degree. So we do have a fairly high, I would say, fairly competitive requirements for students who would like to be considered for this program. So as you can see, students are expected to have level 4 or above in Chinese and level 5 or above in English, as well as level 3 or above in one of the science subjects as listed on the page. Now, the additional consideration, for example, including an interview, how students perform in the interview, and the scoring formula, which you can also see on this website. At the moment, because we are having this program as the first intake in 2022, now we do not have the expected score available yet. So if you're interested to find out more, please do stay tuned. Visit our website, and we will have the information closer later in the cycle. Now, if you're someone who are taking you from an international school, perhaps you are taking an international qualification or qualification outside of Hong Kong, perhaps you're an international student, you can still be considered for HKU and for this particular program. So now, as most of you know, as I mentioned very much in the first couple of slides, you can apply with IBDP, with A-levels and other international or national examinations, depending on which one you are taking at the moment. So we have a complete list available on the HKU website. And we also have what we call the expected lower boundaries that is available on the website. If you want to take a look, you can scan the QR, which will really show you the requirements for different subjects, different programs that you intend to major in. And obviously, we also have additional requirements depending on the program. Now, I'm using IB and GCE A-level as an example in this particular slide, but obviously we also accept students who apply with other international or national qualifications. As you can see, for students who are completing IB, we will require students to have the mathematics and in either standard or higher level, as well as a science subject in standard or higher level. For GCE A-level, students are expected to have either math or further math at A-level, as well as one of the science subject, biochemistry or physics at A-level. So we also have the expected lower boundary score for students who want to be considered for admission. So that would be we expect these scores would be what you need in order to be competitive for these programs, but obviously they do not guarantee admissions. Now, I'll just quickly talk about the other components included in the application. If you are applying to HKU through the non-JUPAS pathway, there will be a form online application that can indicate your extracurriculars. You will have to submit a personal statement indicating your interest and passion. You can also nominate a referee, counselors, provide information such as the transcripts, your predicted result, final results, as well as the reference letters. And those information can be continuously updated and revised actually throughout the application cycle. all students have 5 program choices as well. But if you are very interested in this Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Law program, definitely do place it in as your first choice, as that would also be made known to the programs who are assessing your application. And because you have 5 choices, you're also eligible to receive multiple offers based on your application and profile. So I hope that would give you some general information about what you need, the academic expectation, as well as the other components of the application for you who want to be considered for this program. So pass the time back to you, Edwin.
Thank you, Ying. So I guess Ying has probably answered some of the audience question about like the DSE requirement or IB requirement, GCA level requirement. So again, if you have any questions about the programs, feel free to type it in the Q&A session. So we have different faculty colleagues and teachers to answer you in the Q&A. And if you want to know more about the admissions information, again, you can also browse our website. So now we're coming back to the Q&A session. So we have already received quite a few questions from our audience. So I'll pick some and to share with the speaker. So if you have any opinions or comments, feel free to open your mic and share it with the audience. Okay, so I see one question. So one question asks if I am a student who is strong in English, history, and economy, but not in science-related subjects. So original plan is going for laws, but it's clear that the students want to use this. Sorry, let me check. Okay, so if a student is strong in English, history, and economy, but he wants to jump to business field, but not target to be a lawyer. So is this BSc and LLB program suitable for this student? So or anything, if he is admitted to this program, any like curriculum or features in the university, so can suit this student. So perhaps I guess any teachers or Dr. Brombrek or Professor Zhang or yeah, any colleagues can feel free to answer this student. So maybe I'm not very clear in expressing the question, but feel free to look at it in the Q&A session. It's from Magic, Mr. Ha, Magic Ha.
Can I offer one quick reply? Obviously, if a student is interested in law, but also sees themselves going into business, there is a more obvious double degree or integrated degree program with law, which is the BBA Law LLB. So, which ensures you get all the specialist skills in accountancy, if that's your preference, or in business as the alternative major available in that. So that is really your interest, law, but you expect to go into business. You might think it better to supplement your law studies with business-related studies than science studies as such. On the other hand, if you think the future may involve exposure to entrepreneurial companies working in the tech sector and not traditional finance or industry in that sense, it may be that exposure to science subjects will give you an understanding which will enable you to provide legal services far more coherently in that business context than might otherwise be the case. So I wouldn't exclude it, but I think the program is clearly set up to try to cater to students who have generally would say they're passionate about science, who have a terribly wonderful experience in science, and are now at university historically forced to leave that behind, perhaps because they were thinking of going into law as a vocation. The object here is to not force them to leave it behind, but to be able to pursue their passion in law, in science, while also studying law if they see that as a career path or a vocational path they wish to, a professional path they wish to explore. So there are better paths if you're not really interested in science. You will be competing with students who are interested in science, who often are passionate about it in that way.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Jackson. So, Dr. Brombrek, do you have any things to add on for this? To give this some opinions, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say, I think there's probably better options if if you're not interested in science, it is obviously science as part of the double degree program is an essential part of the degree.
Yeah, thank you. So
can I just chime in and just say science is really, it's a big faculty and they teach a lot of different things. And you're in the course of this dual degree program, you're able to choose from a wide variety of science majors. So there are things like decision analytics, which is a really sort of, has a lot of applicability to business, day-to-day business work. So just because you're interested in business, don't completely discount science because it's a really broad category.
Yeah, I agree. So for Hong Kong U, we have a lot of, like for many faculties in Hong Kong U, we have a lot of majors and minors for you to choose. So don't let your maybe high school elective or subject to decide you what you're going to be interested or what you're going to study in your university life. So I think this is important. So another question is about the interview. So I guess some parents and students are very concerned about this. So can teachers from Faculty of Law and Faculty of Science share about like what kind of quality of students you're looking into during the interview, or if they are invited to the interview, what can they prepare in advance? Anyone want to? Yeah, Dr. Whalen, please.
So I think don't worry about preparing too much for an interview like this. The things that I look for personally when I interview students are their ability to communicate well and communicate clearly. Obviously, I'm in the law faculty, and the ability to communicate is of paramount importance for our students and for lawyers eventually. So that's a really important thing. But don't stress about doing any studying or anything about learning about necessarily about particular questions of science or law. It's more so that we can get a picture of who you are as an individual, what your interests are, and how you would fit into the program.
Dr. Whalen. So how about Mr. Jensen?
Just in terms of what we've done with the interviews to date, largely what we've done is ask students to, they're presented with a short passage with a law-related issue in it, because we know these are students who generally will have strong science backgrounds. We don't need to test their science background. And we ask them to read that and then engage in a group discussion. And we, the interviewers, will listen to them, observe them, and ask questions. And as Ryan has just said, Dr. Whalen said, our object is essentially to ensure you're a good communicator, a good listener, ability to assimilate what others have said in the course of the discussion takes place, respond to it, if necessary, respond to questions from the interviewers. Because within the law faculty, as I will repeatedly tell students, we don't have laboratories, we don't have particle accelerators, we don't have test tubes, anything. We basically have books to read and discussions. And so we need to be confident for entry into this program that you're a student who enjoys that, will cope well in that sort of environment. And so I very much endorse what Dr. Whalen has said. A good communicator, someone who's confident in expressing their ideas, but also a good ability to listen to what others are saying. In that's from the law point of view. Right, on the science side, what they're looking for, well, I'll perhaps leave, I don't know if Professor Chung is still here, him to tell us what he has experienced in the interviews.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. So maybe I can supplement with what kind of quality of the students that we are looking for. Now, naturally, we are looking for the strongest students who are all-rounded. And we are looking for the students who have strong motivation in both disciplines, in law and in science. So we expect that our students will have strong passion in science. They would show creative thinking, logical thinking, analytical skill, and in general knowledge in science. And of course, during the interview, we are trying to look at the language proficiency and the articulation ability, communication skills of the students. Okay? And so naturally, for DSE students, the academic results are naturally the most important factor. And basically, as Michael has just put it, during the interview, we will look at the students from another perspective, like trying to see whether they have strong articulation ability, analytical skills, critical thinking, logical thinking, etc. Okay, and most importantly, we treasure students who have strong curiosity in science and law and legal matters, while having strong awareness of local and global affairs. So all this could be discovered during the interviews.
Oh, thank you, Professor Zhang. So I see some more questions coming in the Q&A session. So let me check. Okay, so I see one question is about like by studying this degree, you'll be served as a bridge between the field of law and science. But what if I'm heavily interested in science, but not as much as law? So should I still choose this degree? So perhaps our teachers, or maybe Nigel or Jennifer, can you give them some advice? Interested in science, but law is quite interested. So should I still choose this degree? Yep. Jennifer, do you want to share? I see you open your cam.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
I must confess that when I first studied science, which is chemistry, I was very afraid of English. So even though I grew up in the United States, my parents are immigrants from Taiwan. So Chinese was my first language. And then I was always afraid of English, and I hated writing because I felt the other people who were native speakers were better than me at writing. And I shied away from from writing, to be honest. And then I realized that as a scientist, having really good communication skills and having good writing skills is really important. Having an ability to sort of, succinctly describe certain topics in a quick and sort of pointed manner is things you actually learn in law school. So I would say, even if your only goal is to become a very good analytical thinker, reader, and writer, I just don't see how that could be bad, to be honest, even as a scientist. And I think as you realize in the science track, as you move up, the people who are able to communicate well, the people who are able to be analytical and have reason are the ones that will become the leaders, because they are able to communicate to everybody within an organization. You could be the scientist who needs to talk to the lawyers, who needs to talk to the CEO, who needs to talk to the business person. So I personally felt that when I went to law school, I got better at arguing, so not surprisingly. So in the past, it was hard for me to formulate my thoughts and to, if I needed to argue for a particular cause, I couldn't do it as clearly. So even as a scientist, if I need to, in the future within a company, argue for my department, or argue for my, for funding or whatever, I just see that those skills are really valuable. So even in science, just reading, writing, and analytics. And I will say that after law school, I became much better at writing coherent essays and also just speaking, being able to just lay out my points and clearly describe. So I just think it's valuable.
Thank you, Jennifer. So any other teachers want to share? Or Nigel, do you want to share?
Yes, I just want to add a few points. So starting from the patent profession, let's say, so this profession is a relatively flexible career, and it provides a wide selection of opportunities of different natures and fitting different personalities and career interests, and even work-life balance too. So you can choose between patent examiners and patent attorneys for drafting patents, which involve lots of paperwork and also lots of scientific and technical materials. And in the meantime, you can also choose to become an IP lawyers, IP arbitrators, and even besides the patent professions, there's other intersections of the technology regimes and also the legal regimes. For example, very interesting example is that there's a sector relating to satellites and space activities. So it's all about the preservation of the space and Earth environment's liability of the damages caused by space objects, and then rescues of astronauts. Very interesting topics if you want to develop your career into that. So I mostly, or Genevieve and I mostly talking about patent professions because we are one of them, but there are of course many other opportunities that may fit with your personalities and interests.
Thank you, Nigel. So any other sharing from teachers? If not, we'll move on to the next question because we have a lot of questions coming in. So there's one more question, actually a few more questions about like extracurricular activities when applying to this degree. So one of them is asking if I have more extracurricular activities tailored to the law side than science, so would it hinder the chances of getting to this program? So this is question one. And the question two is, so since in Hong Kong, we have been the pandemic is bothering us in the past few years. And we, like the students hardly have chance to do any ECA. So would this limitation lower the chance of getting being considered or admitted? So for the ECA part, can any teachers can share your views?
This maybe is something that the admissions office could help answer well.
Yeah, maybe Professor Zheng, do you have any insights?
Yeah. For the first question, if the student has more extracurricular activities in law than science, whether the student will have a better or worse chance of getting in, the answer is no. Okay. A simple answer, no. Yeah. I didn't quite catch the second question.
So the second question, because I mean, it's about the application consideration because like the students hardly have chance to do any ECA in the past few years due to the pandemic. So maybe some of them haven't done anything because they can only stay at home doing online class or like staying at home. Not much to do. So will these affect the chance of being admitted? So it's more or less the same.
Yeah, more or less the same. Yeah. But the answer is no. Because basically we are looking at the DSE examination results and also the interview performance. So it has nothing to do with the pandemic situation. Yeah.
True. Thank you, Professor Zhang. So one more question is about the this internship. So one attendee asked about is there any summer internship in maybe in science field or law fields or research programs related to this degree in this program? So can any teachers can share about the internship experience, the opportunities that will be available for the students? Is there any internship or other exposure?
I guess I'm not aware of any specifically within our faculty of this kind, but I will say, I mean, I think any kind of internship which gives you a science background and science experience, and I presume the same would be similar regarding legal experience. Any of that would be very transferable and would help in terms of the program.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kronbeck. Yeah, Mr. Jackson, yeah, please.
I think the question is presumably asking during secondary schooling. My experience is that students who, for example, are passionate about science have naturally engaged in activities, whether it's competitions or making robots or whatever it is, to provide themselves with those experiences. And as for the law, my advice is leave that to law school. Okay, don't get yourself worn down doing summer internships in law as if that's going to improve your lot in coming into law school. What we will be looking for is your motivation. Are you a well-motivated student in that sense? So if you have found yourself motivated, engaged in going into law school or some such law firm or law-related activities, well and good, but don't feel that that's going to necessarily give you an edge in the admissions process as such. It's more important simply that it reflects your passion about what you're doing, the motivation, because as Professor Chung said, he's interested in students who are passionate about law. Law is interested in students who are highly motivated, because the law degree is a hard degree. and very competitive students. So you need to have very strong motivation. And that's what we look for in the interviews, evidence that we believe you're the sort of student for that. So I wouldn't see yourself trying to tick off boxes of I've done an internship in this and I've done something like that. Let your passions take you to those activities rather than some sort of checkbox that you think will aid your admission per se.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. So one more questions about interview. So we'll coming to wrap it up about this session because we are time is going to be end the session. So last question, when will be the interview? And for getting an interview, do I have to put it in Band A? So I guess this is a junior student. So perhaps Professor John, can you answer this?
Yes, we will only invite students who put this double degree program into one of their Band A choices. So in order to get an interview chance, then the student has to put the program into his or her Band A choices. And we have already done a first round of interview, maybe in late February, I forgot. And later on, around after the DSE examinations, we will have another round of interviews.
Thank you, Professor John. So yeah, so to echo on Professor John, so if you're interested in any like programs in Hong Kong U, including this BSc and LLB, and also some other new programs like big data oriented programs. So remember, if you're interested, so please put it in Band A to maximize your chance of being like invited to the interview. So I guess it's time to wrap up. So I would like to invite like different speakers to give a final word of advice to our audience, maybe parents, to talk to their kids or maybe to the students. What is your advice if they are like considering this BSc and LLB program? So any final words? Anyone can share? Yeah, don't be shy. Mr. Whalen?
I'll just say that
Dr. Whalen? Yeah.
The world is increasingly complex, and there is the need in the 21st century for graduates who understand that complexity, and by being a well-rounded individual who has a solid grounding in law and a solid grounding in a science major, you're going to be better situated to engage with that complexity and help solve the problems of the future. So I'm really excited about the program. I think it has a lot of potential.
So, Dr. Plumbrick, do you have to share?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think I totally agree with that. This is a really exciting program. It's new. There's a lot of opportunity. It's interesting to me, a lot of the questions were about, I'm interested in business or I'm interested in arts or something. I think there are a wide variety of programs, and I would encourage you to follow your interests and follow your passions. And indeed, if science and law are something that you're interested in, this is probably the program for you.
Jennifer, do you want to share? I see you unmute yourself.
Yeah, I think Hong Kong especially is really critical because it already has sort of the Chinese and the English as kind of language acting as a bridge. And then now you've got science and law acting as another bridge. And there are just going to be very few people in the world, honestly, who can be that competitive with the dual language and being situated in Hong Kong. So I really think that to be the first class to be able to have this degree is going to be really powerful in 5 years. In 5 years, yeah. By then they'll be scrambling for you guys.
Thank you, Jennifer. So, any final words from Professor Chung or Mr. Jackson or Nigel?
I agree completely with Tim, with Dr. Plumbrick. My advice is that go for your interest. If you are interested in science and law and legal matters, by all means, try it. But if you are not interested in science or law, but you are just trying to look for a good job in the future, you have to give a second thought.
And I would just endorse what Dr. Whalen has said. The world is increasingly complex. Historically, a student has been able to go into law studies and have a full lifelong career in law. And that's not necessarily the future for many of the youth of today. So giving yourself the widest opportunities, as Jennifer has said today, by exploring two interest areas is something that I think you will be find very beneficial in your future and your long term.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jackson. So, Nigel, do you have any final words for the candidates?
Yes, I actually agree with all the speakers, and it's especially on Dr. Whedon's points that the combination of these two disciplines has really lots of potentials. And of course, it also requires the candidates or the students, lots of qualities. For example, they need to have very strong analytical skills for the science studying, and they need to have the skills, very good communication skills for the legal aspects. And I would say that just follow your heart. If you do not have any interest in science, but very interested in law, then just go for the law degree, and the other way is the same then. So taking both disciplines requires you actually have the enthusiasm for science and technologies. And speaking from experience, I need to read day to day. I need to read up the new technologies for patent drafting, and sometimes it's difficult for me to learn the new technologies at this age. But I still think it's really paid off, and when you have that kind of exposure. So and of course, the training from these two disciplines on the legal and on the scientific trainings would be very rewarding to your future life.
Thank you, Nigel, and thank you all the speakers today, and also thank you students and parents of joining this session. So I guess it's almost time, and this marks the end of our session today. So thank you again, and thank you speakers for giving many insightful ideas and comments on this new program. So we are looking forward to see you in our university next year. If you're interested, really put it in your banner, and for non-JUPAS, please put it in your choice to apply for this program. So if you want to read more about this program and also other new Hongkong program launching this year, so feel free to visit our admission website, which is just Google HKU admissions, and you will find all the information. So hope to see you soon in our upcoming events. And yep, thank you and bye-bye.